All right, welcome everyone to DenverScript August 2025 meetup. Glad to see some new faces, some old faces. We're gonna have a good time. So tonight we're doing lightning talks. We have 3 lightning talks prepared for you. First, I'm gonna do some housekeeping, let you know how we do things here, and then we'll get right into it. So not new organizers, this should just say meet the organizers. So you have myself, I'm CJ, and then also there's Chad back there. Yeah. We also have 2 other organizers who couldn't be here tonight, but tonight we are your points of contact. And we do have this code of conduct. I'm going to read you the abridged version. The full version is at denverscript.com/code-of-conduct. But DenverScript is dedicated to providing a harassment-free community for everyone. Participants violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the community at the discretion of the DenverScript organizers. If you're being harassed, notice that someone else is being harassed, or have any other concerns, please contact a DenverScript organizer immediately. So, like I mentioned, that's us 2. If you're not comfortable talking to us directly, you can email us at denverscript@gmail.com. I'll see it. We'll take care of it. Let's have a good time. And in general, while the talks are happening, we have some ground rules. Please be kind. Don't talk over the organizers or the speakers. You're doing a wonderful job of that right now. And there will be time for Q&A after each of the talks. And during that time, we ask that you ask constructive questions. So try not to have any sort of gotcha for the speaker or anything like that. You can reserve that for conversation afterwards. Yeah, be kind. We're here to have a good time. We would like to thank our sponsors. So tonight, the space that you're in right now is called Code Talent. They are a technical recruiting agency that knows the difference between Java and JavaScript. And we really appreciate them because they let us use this space completely for free. And if you are looking for a job, reach out to them. If you're a company that's looking to hire developers or technical people, you can reach out to them as well. I believe there's business cards on the table over there if you want to learn more. But Code Talent is awesome. We love them. They're great for the Denver tech community. And we're always looking for more sponsors. So I bought the food. That was on me tonight. But if you're a company and you would like to sponsor the food, denverscript@gmail.com to let us know. And we're always looking for speakers. So we luckily have 3 speakers tonight, but it's always, we're always looking for speakers, I'll say that. So denverscript.com, there's a form where you can submit. We're looking for speakers of all kinds. You could be a complete beginner and tell us how you learned some new tech. It could be a deep dive into how the V8 JavaScript engine works. You could also tell us about your passion for split keyboards, which you're going to hear about tonight as well. So it doesn't have to just be JavaScript. We like to have a lot of different topics. So please submit your talks. And that is all I have. Now it's on to the talks. So your first speaker tonight is Nico Andruzzi. The title of his talk is Keyvolution, Survival of the Splittest. So he's going to get set up, maybe a minute if you want to grab a drink, but keep your conversations to a minimum because we're going to keep it moving. All right, please put your hands together for Nico.
Hello. So yeah, this talk, Keyvolution, Survival of the Splittest, is kind of a journey from me being a bad developer to me still being a bad developer, but with a cool keyboard. It's half a joke, but a lot of people start by saying, you know, why even change from using a laptop keyboard? You get the ultimate portability, you can go anywhere, and I'm perfectly used to it, so why do that? Does it make you a better developer? Does it make you faster at typing? The answer is kind of yes and no. Really what you get with better keyboards, or more ergonomic keyboards I should say, is ergonomics, which all of the definitions, the common denominators are efficiency and comfort. And the more efficient and comfort your setup is, multiplied by daily usage, multiplied by 8+ hours a day, as I'm assuming many of you are developers here, that adds up to a better developer experience, which leads to, I think, somewhat being a better developer and being faster at typing. I started my journey not even really knowing how to touch type at the beginning of this. And a common example that is given, especially when people really question, like, will this keyboard make me faster at typing, is why change from running wearing boots on my feet and wearing cotton clothes? It's like, will changing my shoes or clothes make me a better athlete or faster at running? Not necessarily, but if you're wearing comfortable ergonomic shoes and sweat-wicking clothes every day when you're running, that's going to be a better running experience, which will kind of have that positive feedback loop leading to a better running experience. And so, yeah, getting into it, I've kind of separated this out into all of the levels. It doesn't mean that that's the always progression. These levels can be interchanged, but this is generally speaking the progression that a lot of people have. So laptop switches use these thing called scissor switches, and there's really little travel distance from all the way up to all the way down. You're not in control of how much force it takes to press them. And pretty consistently, when you tap a laptop key, you're pressing it all the way to the bottom. And even though it sounds negligible, your finger pressing into the bottom and reaching that stopping point added up does create an uncomfortable experience given enough time typing. And so switching to a mechanical keyboard, the left is your regular switch, and then on the right is a low profile switch. So regular switches have 3 to 4 millimeters travel distance. Low profiles have anywhere from 2 to 3 millimeters travel distance. But most importantly for both of them, it's 1 to 2 millimeters to actuate. So you actually can press, and without pressing them all the way down to the bottom, you can trigger the key. And then also for both of these, I only have a graphic for regular mechanical keys, not low profile ones. But you have the choice between linear, tactile, and clicky. Clicky is just tactile with a sound that some people like. I do not, but that's just personal preference. But either way, what you see on the left-hand side is that triggering mechanism that you're seeing bounce back and forth. That is what actually actuates. So you can press your key without actually fully pressing the switch down, which again, over enough time is noticeable on your fingers. Next level, if you have changed your key switches, the next thing to think about is key caps. And there's many different ones. The two big categories here are sculpted or uniform. Many different reasons to use either of them. On the left is kind of a grand comparison of lots, but there's even more than this, and even more people 3D printing their own in their houses for even more custom shapes and contours. But obviously your finger feel is making an improvement there as far as your keycaps go. Next level, more ergonomic, is staggered to ortholinear. So on your regular keyboards that you're used to, all of the keys are kind of in this diagonal pattern, which tends to make you always be moving your fingers in that direction or sitting maybe with your laptop even slightly twisted to make up for that. So ortholinear keyboards are all in one direction. So your fingers can move in the same direction you're sitting. You kind of sit straight on with your keyboard. I think this makes a pretty significant difference for this one, much more so than like keycaps, for example. So ortholinear is level 3. Going up to the next level, all keys together versus unibody split to full split. So all keys together is the last slide here. This is called a unibody split, so it still is one physical keyboard, but you are starting to separate out, and at that angle is a little more comfortable to type, all the way up to full splits, where you can position them basically ideally shoulder width apart, and that's another really big difference. This jump to full split was a particularly difficult one for me, being that I didn't know how to touch type very well, so I found a lot of my typing patterns were crossing my hands over the keyboard, and when they're shoulder width apart, you're kind of forced to not do that. And so going up to level 5, no thumb buttons to thumb clusters. So your thumbs are your most powerful fingers on your hand, and most of the time we're using both of them just to be tapping spacebar, or either or of them, and not using one. So thumb clusters are a great adaptation. Usually they're mapped to common things you would press, like space, backspace, tab, escape for Vim users, certain things like that. But huge upgrade to being able to use your thumb in addition to your fingers. Then moving up, We have level 6, row aligned to column staggered. So if you look at the distances on your fingers are each a different length. And so that maps to the keyboard having different height columns. This is just another example of different types of thumb clusters also with this one, but you can pretty clearly see the columns match up, and that tallest column is where you would be resting your middle finger on the home row. Moving up to the next level, level 7, we have pure ortholinear, moving up to pinky splay and full splay. So if you notice as you open and shut your hands, your pinkies kind of go off and do their own thing, whereas the rest of your fingers are mainly in one direction. So it's very slight, but you can kind of see here how the pinky row is off doing its slightly own thing. And then some people take that to an extreme and splay the full keyboard, just to try and match your hand pattern a little bit better. This one's more of a personal preference. You don't see this on everything, but it is an interesting adaptation that I thought should be included. And moving on to level 8. Flat surface to key well. This is another pretty big one, where because as you curve your fingers, they're moving around this semicircular path, it makes it a little bit easier to press the keys if they're in a key well. This is also usually the point where you don't use sculpted keycaps with those different shapes and use more of a uniform pattern, because the curvature you're getting from the actual wells curvature. And then this keyboard on the right, I actually do have in the back. So after this talk later tonight, if anyone wants to give it a try, you can see how a well feels. And so yeah, moving on to level 9. Basically, one key, one function is what most people use for their keyboard. You guys are used to using layers already, where if you tap the A key, you get a lowercase a, but if you hold shift, you get an uppercase a. That is layers on average keyboards. This takes it to the next level. This is what I use, but there's a whole bunch of different mirroring layouts. This is called Miryoku, but basically for each of the thumb layers, when you hold it, this bottom color is what turns to this layer. So if I hold this middle button, I get the numbers on this left half. If I hold the purple key over here, I get the media buttons on this half. And with these just 36 keys, I actually have more keys than you do on a full keyboard, even with a numpad. So moving on to level 10. Level 10 is alternative alpha layouts, as they're called. People spend lots more time than I do throwing full English literature at a keyboard to determine what pattern you'll be clicking the keys at to find what's most comfortable. Dvorak is a pretty famous one. More modern and famous is Colmac, but there's literally dozens of these. But you can see we are trying to center your presses towards the home row when possible. Moving on to level 11, just keys versus mouse integration. So every time you have to move your hand to your mouse, that's wasted time and motion kind of. So people move to, over here is trackpad, so basically, or a track point, which is basically a little joystick. Trackpad, so this is just like the touchpad on your computer, only attached just inward of your home row. And then also, the ergonomic balls that you can use as like your little joystick also. So those are the ones for mouse integration. And then level 12 is imagination and beyond. It's basically whatever you can think of. The ergo community is crazy to be trying to put wearable laptops attached or wearable keyboards attached to your pants. This is the Sval board, pretty far out design, not even using keyboard switches. And really whatever you can think of and are creative enough to try.
Awesome. So we have about a minute and a half for questions. I see a question up here.
Yeah, so how long did it take you to get used to the switch? I know you said you weren't a touch typist necessarily beforehand, but I got Nerd Snipe by the Primogen of Lex Friedman with the Kinesis. I think I dropped like $300 on it. Use it for an hour. I was like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
How do you do it, man? How did you sacrifice those words per minute and then just like it had to be daunting.
No, it's a
Just
great
making that
question.
switch.
When I first started, I had a mercy layer where I could switch back to QWERTY if I needed to get some work done. And then for just going to a split, my levels were going to split, then going to layers, and then after I had split layers, I switched to Colmac. So I did it in steps is like the short answer, and then I always had a backup. So right when I went to a split, I still had a regular keyboard to switch back to. After I went to layers, I still had the option to not use the layers, and then after I went to Colmac, I had a QWERTY Mercy layer, and then as cliche as it is, small usage as you go really builds it up. 10 minutes max, when you're starting off.
Awesome. Other questions?
Yeah, I got one. I'm curious, how many, through your journey, how many different keyboards have you acquired? And then how many of those have you bought versus like built yourself, if any?
Yeah, the first one I bought, and then I think I have maybe 4 more that I've done that I've built after that, just going through different iterations and different things that I've seen. As I listed here, the ErgoMech keyboards on Reddit is a really cool but dangerous place. There's lots of interesting ideas that you can build some of these boards for as cheap as like $40 all the way up to hundreds of dollars. So yeah, the first one I bought to get me into this world, and then 4 more built.
Awesome. That's all the time we have, but please give it up for Nico. Thank you. Okay, so next up is Lisa. She's giving the talk, What a Chick-Fil-A Drive-Thru Taught Me About Enterprise Architecture. Please give it up.
Thank you. So thank you for having me tonight. My name is Lisa. I'm a data engineer. I work for startups, but mostly for startups. But my last contract was with a major enterprise, and we were doing architecture for them. And as the whole contract played out, this story kind of came to life for me, so I wanted to share it with you tonight. So my son can't eat anything. So like Chick-fil-A is the only restaurant that he can go to that's like fast food. So last summer, at some point every Saturday, I was sitting in the drive-thru line, that same Chick-fil-A, watching how it worked. If you don't know, Chick-fil-A has extremely advanced queuing systems. So they will go for scalability, throughput. These are data-driven traffic flow analysis designs. They have clear lanes with specific functions, and they're tested under load. They're meant to move lots and lots of cars seamlessly without any interference. And I love queues. I'm a former network engineer. My master's degree in network engineering, so I'm just like, queues, yeah, they're great. So here I am, I'm going to the Chick-fil-A every weekend, and, I'm kind of watching how it works. So the cars, they enter down here, and the white arrows mean that orders haven't been taken yet. So Chick-fil-A uses what's called a roving worker system, so they work both ends of the queue, because once those cars get in that line, they're fixed. You can't really move them until it hits this exit point down here. So they optimize here by they have roving workers taking the orders, and then once the orders are in the system, they have runners on the other end that will deliver the food out even before the cars reach the end of that escape lane. So the cars kind of sort themselves into fast and slow moving orders. So as you can see here, we got a couple of cars that are waiting, that are red in the slow lane, but we have some cars here that have already gotten their food and they're leaving. They're gone. So that keeps the system moving. Yeah, does it slow down? Yeah, does it get backed up? You get 3 red cars in a row? All of this is normal, right? But the system is just so well designed, it works so well, and it makes my brain happy. I like seeing a well-designed system. So what happened that inspired this story? Every weekend I'm sitting there and I'm watching this guy right here, smiley face. Smiley face thinks that he can beat the system. He's under pressure to deliver orders. He wants to optimize. He wants to show that he is doing something. So what does he do? He has no control over the order of these cars, but he would direct a car from the back of this line here up into the free lane to just sit there and wait while all the cars pile up behind it. This is a self-healing system. And by intervening at that stage, he essentially broke it, right? With the best of intentions, he broke it. He wanted to do better, he wanted to show that he was active, that he was doing something to deliver these orders. But every time he did it, I'd just sit there and siege. I'm like, what are you doing? I wanted to like just go up to him and sit him down at Chick-Fil-A and buy him a nice sweet tea and be like, trust the system. It's gonna be okay. Just let it work. So, then I started thinking about like, why do we do this? Because we all like to mess with things that are already working. And I think it's because we've all been burned at some point. We've got software that crashes, we've lost work, automated systems with wrong answers. Smart tech, how many times has this happened in our careers, guys? Made our life that much harder. And your problem, that's really key to you, gets attributed to a system error, right? And we have a result of system anxiety. We're always worried the system's gonna screw us, or something bad's gonna happen, and then we're gonna get stuck in a bad situation. And so we see this behavior like the weekend manager coming in trying to direct cars into the free lane because he wants to show that he's being proactive, but in reality he's breaking the system. Okay, so what does this have to do with enterprise architecture? This is where the story all comes together. Because for the last 6 months I've been working on a major enterprise project, and I just kind of gave a high-level overview here. When I got hired on, they had decided to use a system called Glue, which is purpose-built to move data from on-prem systems or cloud systems that are application-based to Snowflake, where we do analytics on them. Glue is custom-built for this purpose. This was a major enterprise project. We had billions of records to move, and the project got off to a bad start. So as we kept working, trying to make things work, the client lost trust. Their trust in us started to break down. And what happened? Well, they decided these were, Microsoft SQL DBAs. They were used to an entirely on-prem Microsoft system. The cloud was a mystery to them, and they didn't want to deal with us, and they didn't want to trust this system, AWS Glue. So what did they do? They decided that we were going to have to use a command line tool called BCP from the 90s to move billions of records through Airflow. This was a bespoke system that nobody was prepared for. They made this decision in March, and the and the project ran through July. So, what? Why? It was such a mistake for the client to do this. But it's because of this anxiety, right? These guys were being pushed into a situation that they didn't understand, they didn't conceive of, that they didn't appreciate, and I assume that was told to them from upper management, you have to do this. And then, because the delays at the beginning of the project, they just lost faith in everything. And they're like, we're gonna go with what we know. And we know BCP, and BCP's gonna save us, it's gonna solve all our problems. And it absolutely did not, because you cannot go from a purpose-built system that you're just configuring to a completely bespoke system that you're building in 4 months. It simply doesn't work. And that's, this weekend manager kind of came in and was like, I'm gonna interfere. I'm gonna get in the middle of this. I'm gonna make it work in the way that I understand. I'm gonna show that I'm being proactive, right? Then I'm gonna make it make sense for me. But that didn't make sense in the actual delivery of the data, which is what they really wanted. So this kind of just shows how we think about systems, how we work with systems. And I kind of thought through four layers of, working with systems, going from beginner where you're just kind of learning a system, or you're learning how systems work, and you're kind of beholden to it in a way that you don't fully understand. And I feel like this is where our client was kind of sitting with the systems that we wanted to put in. So at the intermediate level, you're like, I can hack around it. Workarounds feel clever. I'm going to leverage it the way I need to and kind of be happy with it. And then you kind of get into where the level of where you're building, interconnected systems and stuff. So you start getting into your advanced, trust the system to verify, place checks, do routines, make sure that you understand what's going in, what's going out, and how that system works. And then at the expert level, you work with your system and you incorporate your judgment, right? How best to use this tool in this way. And I'm not saying that, say, AWS was the best tool ever in existence for this purpose. But what it is a system that would work just fine for that implementation. And we would be able to deliver that had the weekend manager not come in and go like, no, you're using BCP over Airflow, which Airflow doesn't capture state, guys. We had no backend. Like, just imagine it for a minute, like, you know. And so, like, don't be the weekend manager, right? Learn your systems, learn the boundaries and how you can trust them. Don't sabotage your throughput. Work with the people who are trying to design for you. Make sure they have the tools and the information that they know that they need, and work with the design, not against it, right? When they came in, they didn't even let us use a tool other than BCP. So like we might have been able to get a better library, something else that we could have used in Airflow that would have worked better. That wasn't given to us as an option. So, you know, when we're in these situations and working with teams that maybe don't understand, you know, I think it's partly on the part of, if you're a consultant, you need to be working directly with your client to build that trust, to show them you know what you're doing, and to bring them into the fold rather than creating this kind of like oil and water situation that we had going on there because of that lack of trust, you know. So just a little funny story about Chick-Fil-A and a massive enterprise project that fell flat on its face. My name's Lisa, data engineer. I'm looking for work. So if you have anything, just let me know and connect with me on LinkedIn.
Any questions? Question. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, for that. Interesting comparison and analysis. So during your time during that contract, were you given a chance to work through the phases and show progress?
The scope changed about 10 lines in the months that we were working on it. This was one of the worst managed client situations I think I've ever seen. And I've been doing projects for pretty much the entire time I've been an engineer. So like, I was pretty surprised that, and I have to clarify, I was a contractor who consulting firms to the client. So like my power in the situation was pretty limited. I did say, what I thought would be the best option, which was glue. And I pretty much set that right up at the point of no return, or glue wasn't going to save it anyway, because we didn't have enough time to configure it. But yeah, I definitely think education of the client, making sure that everybody's on board, is absolutely key. Because we had so much rework because they didn't know what they wanted. We'd do something, they'd be like, no, that's not it. And every time that would just kick that deadline back and come back. So really, as I said, education. Experience.
It sounds like maybe also a failure of Agile, which we all.
We weren't even doing Agile. In fact, the guy was like, we're not doing Agile, we're just going to work as hard as we possibly can. I don't even think Agile would have saved that situation. But yeah, thanks for letting me present, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. Up next is Tom. He's going to be giving the talk, Putting the AI in CAIC. Please give it up.
Thanks, everybody. Anyone here enjoy backcountry skiing? And skiing an avalanche terrain is no joke. I'd recommend training before spending time in avalanche terrain. And here that means taking an ARI course. And one thing that you'll learn in an ARI course is how to use avalanche forecast tools to help guide your planning and decision making when you're in the backcountry. All right, so what is CAIC? So CAIC is the Colorado Avalanche Info Center. They provide avalanche forecasts online, as well as they publish reports on avalanche incidents that you can read and learn from. And when I'm figuring out what to build for a side project, I often pool from my interests. And I think it's clear that, and I'm showing you some slides that show what the CAIC app looks like. So anyway, I often pull from my interests, and I think it's clear that AI is like changing our industry. So I wanted a place where I could experiment with using AI, and side projects are actually a really great place for learning by doing, especially if you aren't offered that opportunity at work. And so what I wanted to learn about in this side project was, how to use AI to build things like vibe code. I think a better term for that is AI assisted engineering. And then, what's the landscape like for tools in this space right now for building AI applications? And what is it like to use AI as part in the stack of a web application? Like, what's it like to thread it into your stack? And so chat apps seem to be like the first use case that has emerged for AI, and I'm sure folks here are familiar with them. But you can, there's a lot of valid use cases and workflows outside of chat apps, and one of them is like report generation. And so those were kind of the two use cases I kind of wanted to learn. And tonight I'm going to focus on, those are the things that I wanted to learn, and I built a side project to learn them. And tonight I'm going to focus on a chat app that I built, or I should say I vibe coded it, and it uses Vercel's AI SDK. And the AI SDK from Vercel makes it really easy to integrate with different model providers and then run them. And it's all run in Node. It has an amazing TypeScript support. Personally, I think it's the best stack for building AI applications, better than Python. But that's just my hot take. And so with that being said, I'm going to jump right into a demo. But before that, a little bit about me. My name's Tom Hopkins. I'm a senior engineer. I have almost 10 years of professional experience, all that working in full stack. TypeScript, Python, Ruby, React, Linux, Amazon. I love to tinker and build things. I recently built an AI home lab. It's actually a Proxmox hypervisor. It's what the app that I'm demoing is running on. I recently just stood up a little BirdNet microphone outside of my house to analyze bird songs and report on them. But anyway, I'm open for new roles, and I would love to connect after if you guys think I would be a good addition. But anyway, so let's jump right into the code. So here's the code, and you can see I wanted to build something as simple as possible. This is just a simple CLI app. There's a while loop. We prompt the user in the while loop. We pass that to a model instance that was instantiated with the AI SDK. And just taking a brief look at the code, you can see how tools are kind of registered with that instance from Vercel's AI SDK. And I have a little pre-baked demo here. I was gonna do this live, but it's running on a machine in my house. But you can see I'm typing in, you can see the prompt from the code screenshot. You can see I'm typing in, hey, what's the avalanche forecast like in Berkeley Pass? And you can see I'm logging some lat long data that's actually from the tool invocation. And then a response that you can see right there. And you can see a response right there at the end that has kind of like the information from the avalanche forecast summarized with the response to the user. And so this demo might be like a little underwhelming, so I'm sorry for that. But if you just take a look at the code that I used to accomplish that, there's barely anything there. There's like a while loop. Where's the code that is the logic for dictating, hey, I should make a tool call? Where there's no like parsing of the query for like keywords, like, hey, avalanche, oh, call the avalanche tool. There's none of that, right? There's just the AI SDK, and I'm configuring its max steps parameter that kind of like is the key config that you want to use for tool calling. And then another kind of cool thing from this demonstration is I'm using a small Llama 3D parameter model, and it has relatively accurate lat long coordinates in its embedded. So like I'm not having to do a lookup to get lat longs from like, hey, St. Boulder or Berkeley Pass or whatever. All right. So what is tool calling? Vercel's docs have a really good definition. I've just listed it right there. But basically, it's what you use when you want to get information that isn't in your model's training set. And the canonical example is fetching the weather, and you can even see they're using it in the Vercel's definition. And let's go ahead and take a look at the code real quick. Right, so that's what a implementation of a tool looks like, and it's pretty straightforward. And I guess the thing to kind of take a close look at there is we're just using Zod to define a schema that's like the shape of the input for your tool. They're just functions that have an input and an output. And it's actually kind of important to be very verbose and pick good names for your tool call parameters and your names and your descriptions, because the model, if you have a good description of your tool and its capabilities, then your model might be more likely to actually use it when it's parsing your query. So you can see this is pretty straightforward. It's kind of like RAG, you give access to stuff outside of your system, and tool calling is part of the reason why like MCP is getting hyped so much. Tool calling is like the killer app of MCP, if you ask me. But anyway, so like there's the code getting wired together. This is the same screenshot from earlier. You can see the tools are registered with the prompt or with the Vercel Zeta SDK model instance function. So anyway, what if you want to do the same thing, but instead of fetching the weather, you want to fetch the avalanche forecast information from CAIC? Well, there's a bit of an issue because they don't have a public API, right? I ended up kind of looking underneath the hood, using Chrome Dev Tools, and kind of reverse engineering their site a little bit. And when you kind of select a region on their website where you want your forecast from, you'll see the long lat chords update in the query string. And I knew I wanted a similar API like that. I was like, sweet, I'll just pass the query string. I'll just grab the coordinates and then pass that to a method that I can call that accepts that and returns the avalanche forecast. But the issue is they don't have any responses in their API that have an API like that. They had 4 responses that they sent back, and 3 of them were just like giant GeoJSON blobs that I immediately had no idea like what to make any sense out of. And then the other one had all of the forecast data for all of the regions, but I needed it to be specific to where I was asking for the location was, so I didn't know what to do. So I was kind of at like a little bit of an impasse, so I just started pasting the responses into ChatGPT. Actually, I used Gemini, but same thing. And so it turns out that that GeoJSON data that I immediately ignored was like the key missing part. And so I asked Gemini to kind of vibe up a little way to visualize the feature data from the JSON files, and that's what it came up with. And you can see when you interact with that map, it shows you a really kind of unique looking identifier. And that's not like a GUID or whatever. I don't even know what format it is. But anyway, I noticed the same syntax or format of identifiers in the other JSON response that has all of the forecast data. And so that's when I had like the eureka moment that I needed to basically, and that I needed to cross-reference that identifier and then use that to search against the JSON data that contained all the forecast information. And so with that being said, I hopped over to Claude. Here's a conversation that I was describing the problem. We got to the point where it was writing code for me to basically find if points are inside of bounding boxes inside of I guess a GeoJSON feature data. And then that function will return the identifier. Then I just wrote some other functions that use that identifier to find which identifier in the other JSON array had that information. And then that's what I was able to use to pull up that demo that I gave earlier. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Thanks for your ears tonight. I appreciate it.
Any questions for Tom?
So I'm still a little unclear about the difference between the tooling and MCP. I know how an MCP is just like an API to manipulate something for you. How's the tooling different? It's all baked into like an agent style?
There's a lot of overlap in functionality. MCP uses tool calls to actually do the thing that an MCP server is doing, but it goes beyond just allowing your LLM to like call functions that do things. It provides a way for you to like specify what they do, or registration for them, a form of discovery that allows you to discover the capabilities of the server for the MCP client. So it's like enterprise FizzBuzz, but the killer app is just the tool calling. So they're, in my mind, synonymous. I just think of them as the same thing, honestly. But I'm not sure if that answers your question. Yeah.
I can help. MCP is the specification. Tool calling is just how OpenAI does it. But technically, they could implement MCP so that it could work in other tools like Claude or whatever else. But
Is tooling like an agent, like it's specific for one type of job, or is it more broad?
I think it's more of like, say you have a function to get data out of your database, and you need to wrap it in like an Open API JSON spec or a GraphQL spec. Both of those are just getting you the same data, just different ways to interchange with it on top. But I don't know if that's a good analogy. That's what I've come up with on the fly sitting in front of me. But yeah, they're the same. Like MCP is the meat, or tool calling is like the meat of MCP, right? And if you think about it, in that demo, the back and forth that the AI SDK was doing that was like made it so killer was there was like 4 or 5 different prompts right there. A tool call response is the answer to one of your queries, and then the AI SDK has to figure out like, oh, actually I have to go 3 or 4 more round trips to use the response to summarize it and then tell you what the summary of the response was. And that's all baked into that max steps parameter in the first LSA AI SDK.
Other questions for Tom? All right, we got plenty of time, so we're just going to sit here awkwardly. All right, if you have any more questions for Tom or anybody else, do it afterwards. Thank you so much.